Conservatives are coming for no-fault divorce from Jezebel. They say after the fall of Roe, right-wing media have been ratcheting up their rhetoric against no-fault divorce. Expect policy to follow. Bum, bum, bum. The reason why this story is from August, we're talking about now. I didn't catch this when it came out, but they refer to our good friend Ian Crossland as a conservative commentator. So let me show you first a little bit what they say in the beginning. I love this because they talk about us. Where are they getting into it?
I thought you were an authoritarian liberal.
Yeah, you were right about that.
Yeah. They mention, here we go. In it, there's a popular conservative influencer, Tim Pool. Oh, really? Yeah, I'm conservative now. In a segment on a show, I love that one because they say it a lot, but conservatives are like, yeah, Tim Pool's not conservative. Yeah. Tim Pool in a segment on his show was delightfully titled "No Fault Divorce Has Destroyed Men's Confidence in Marriage. Men Don't Want to Get Married Anymore." Yeah, that's true. There are studies that show that. We're not just like screaming into the wind. We're like reading things and going, wow, look at that. According to Poole, guys, can't you at least cite the thing I'm reading and not me? I'm not like fabricating things on the wall. They say we have no fault divorce laws to blame for the rise of prenuptial agreements. Yes. Duh. Okay, moving on. Which allegedly place men at risk of being robbed by gold-digging, thieving Jezebels. Oh, name drop, their own website. Name drop. Willfully ignoring how the court system has a long history of re-traumatizing and destroying the lives of rape and domestic violence victims. No, we know full well that's called fault, right? When a guy commits a crime against his wife, now there's fault, you can get a divorce. Congratulations, you understand what no fault means. The best part of the article, they write, in the same episode on Poole's show, conservative commentator Ian Crossland adds, quote, "We live in this culture where no-fault divorce is the law of the land, ... If young folks know they're in an environment where divorce is not an option, I firmly believe they're going to be more careful about who they choose to marry." Also, a very dry fact statement. I mean, it's a dry analysis. Ian didn't come out and say, arrest all of the women who try to get divorces. He said, if people can't divorce, they're probably going to be more careful about it.
Yeah, but I didn't say that. If I did, that was a misspeak. I said that if people can't get a no-fault divorce, if people can't divorce... Oh, wait, what does it say? If young... First of all, I don't use the word folks. That's Obama speak. And I know I don't use that word, so they're misquoting me. They took a dot and cut.
We got to pull that up because I don't.
They didn't link to the story either, so I don't know what they were referencing something from like 2 months ago. But it wasn't that if people can't get a divorce, it's if people can't get a no-fault divorce, then they're going to be much more choosy about getting marriage. I don't ever advocate for people not being able to get divorced. That's complete insanity. If a guy beats his wife, she should leave him and make him pay.
Yeah. So they actually did link to the segment. And it was with, Dr. Chloe Carmichael was on the show at the time. This is from a few months ago. I'm not going to play through it and try and find the point where Ian says the word folks or whatever. But I just love that this is how the media operates. They lie. They falsely frame things. But
yeah, I might have used those words, but referencing that if they can't easily get a divorce. So I'm not saying that they're misquoting me. I'd have to reference the data.
Here's the point I want to make. Thank you, Jezebel, for giving us the opportunity to bring this subject back up. If no-fault divorce is the law, then marriage does not exist.
Dude, you can marry a woman and she can leave you the next day and take half your money. Literally.
No, well, that's a bit extreme.
But she can't.
Typically, they would annul, not divorce.
What's the difference?
Annulment means it didn't happen. So if you get married to someone and the next day try to dissolve the marriage, they would probably file an annulment and not allow a divorce. Divorce, but there are circumstances where it could be like 6 months to a year, and all of a sudden now it's like they are entitled to half of your belongings. So marriage is a contract, between two people. The state certifies it to enforce the contract. And it used to be in the past, someone would be like, I don't like her. She's annoying and I don't want to be with her. And I'm like, yeah, well, too bad. You entered into a contract with this person. You have to now abide by this. So they create no-fault divorce, and now it's basically dating. It's like, okay, there's no marriage anymore. It used to be that you would date. There'd be no binding contract or anything. And if you didn't like it, you'd walk away. Then you'd say, you know what? I think this is working. I'm willing to enter into a lifetime contract with you, enforced by the law. And they'd say, okay, and you do it. No-fault divorce means marriage doesn't exist anymore for all intents and purposes, except for the purpose of stealing money from, one party or the other.
Yeah, it's an opt-in business contract where you split your finances. But the fact that one of the partners can cancel the contract and then take half of your wealth is complete insanity. Luke, if me and you started a company, so it is like this. If me and you started a company it made $1 million. And
Is
then
that what the young kids are calling it these days?
Yeah, well, we'll just call it.
You
want
to start a company?
Luke, will you start a company with me? And then if you decided to leave the company, I mean, I think you don't get any. The company still stands, and I have the rest. I still own.
He would
control
own
of it.
I mean, in this, a better argument would be, I enter into a contract with Luke that I'll provide lumber for him in exchange for coal. And then one day Luke delivers coal, and then I say, I'm terminating the contract. And then Luke's like, what? You can't do that. You're supposed to give me the lumber. No, I had no fault contract.
Is coal sex? Is that what the
No, I'm just saying, like, in a marriage, you're basically saying we're going to build a life together. Whatever that may mean. Maybe the wife works, maybe the husband works, maybe they both work. But the reason why the assets are pooled together is that they're forming a family unit. They're going to have kids, and this is going to help a woman who gets pregnant and things like that. No fault divorce means that you can enter into a contract, share all your resources, and then someone can leave. So perhaps a better way to explain it is, you merge companies, and it's like, let's say you have a podcasting company, and a major media conglomerate worth tens of billions of dollars says, we're going to do a merger with you. And then you go, okay, but it's a no-fault merger. I can leave and take half of Warner Brothers. Like, that's
it's
insane.
so weird. And then you can also have kids get married to a woman, have kids, and then she can just be like, one day be like, man, I did some ayahuasca, I had a change of heart. I'm going to leave you, take the kid, and make you pay me money.
Yep.
You're like, what in the hell is going on? How is this even like a romantic or like righteous thing?
There's no marriage there. There's no marriage there. At this point, with no fault divorce, marriage is basically a tax bracket. That's it. It's like, oh, we're married now, so we get a tax benefit. But anyone can leave at any time, so there's no real contract. There's no point in doing it. What's the purpose?
Only that you can give your spouse money untaxed. That's it. It's just a business, basically a loophole almost at this point.
Well, child custody is where a lot comes into all of these things, of course, as well. And then that, unfortunately, becomes, in a lot of cases, the leverage that's used in the divorce. Unfortunately, that becomes as much of more leverage, and oftentimes than even the money.
Like who gets the kid?
Yeah.
And how would that work? Like a person would say, you can have the house if I can have the kid, kind of thing, or vice versa.
I don't think that's what they would say in court.
It's like a bargaining chip. Like
yes, kids being used as a bargaining chip in divorce has been going on probably since the beginning of divorce.
But it used to be that if you tried to get a divorce, a court would be like, no. So like, I want to get a divorce because I mean, there were serious cases where women were being abused, but they couldn't prove it, and the courts would be like, no divorce, nice try, you can't do it. That's a problem. The solution isn't no fault divorce. That's insane. Because now you're going to get fatherlessness, women who are getting abortions because they can't afford the kids instead of having a father who's around. With the fatherlessness leads to crime and poverty, and now we're seeing the ripple effect of this, where politicians like Stacey Abrams are like, the solution to a woman who can't afford a kid is to kill the kid, and that's insane. The solution used to be someone had to earn to provide for that kid. Now it's just like, well, that's not going to happen, so kill it.
With fault divorce before, 1969 or whenever it got introduced, and it was like the Bolsheviks, actually, the Russian Bolsheviks are the ones who kind of created the idea of that you could just divorce with no fault. But before that, was it that guy would beat his wife and she couldn't prove it, so she couldn't leave him? Kind of thing, and that was a problem, so they were like, we got to liberate these women.
I don't know if that was the main reason why they decided to enact no fault divorce, but often you'd go to court and be like, we want to get a divorce, and the judge would be like, nope, I sentence you to marriage counseling. So they would not divorce. And then the argument was that women were being beaten, raped, and traumatized, and it led to suicides, and no fault divorce resulted in a lowering of the suicide rate among many married women. Yeah, don't get married. That's the crazy thing. It's like, you have a problem with marriage? Don't get married. Yeah. But they do, and then they're like, hey, it's not working out for me. Let's destroy the institution instead of just realizing we made a mistake.
Like, I don't want to tell you don't get married. If you want to get married, but I don't want to get married right now because of no fault divorce. Straight up. I mean, I'm just being honest. I don't want to get married and then have the woman just be like, you're acting like a jerk. I'm out. Give me half of everything you've ever earned. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? No way, dude.
Yep.
And fortunately, I'm with a woman that feels the same way. And I think there are a lot of people out there that feel like that.
Russell Brand was married to Katy Perry, right?
Yeah.
I think the story was that when they got divorced, he was entitled to a ton of money, and he was like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Russell Brand is already rich, so he's like, I don't want to deal with I don't care about that.
Yeah, but I still respect that.
For sure, but I mean, you see, this is the problem when you have guys who are like, you know what, I'm a man and I have money, so I don't need to take half of your stuff. Meanwhile, you look at every other case, the overwhelming majority, it's the woman being like, I get your stuff.
This is true.
Look at Mackenzie Bezos.
Yeah,
amazing.
seriously.
She got, what did she got half, right?
I think so.
Is she get half of?
Yeah.
Wasn't 50 billion or something?
That's crazy.
Insanity.
And then she got
she
married, and they got divorced.
Yeah,
again,
she has a fourth
second time.
She married some guy.
So did the guy take half of her 50 billion when they got divorced? Is that record?
I don't know if he took.
There's
I
no
don't-
way.
Yeah, because that we weren't married long enough.
Yeah. And it was after the finances had been gained. She was married to Bezos prior while he was
Right.
building the wealth.
Yeah, but with a marriage, you get, if they divorce, don't you get all the money back to birth? Like everything you've ever been worth if you were
Yes.
from, yeah.
But it's not so
unless you
simple.
sign a
There's-
prenup.
Right.
You had assets coming into a marriage, and so those get taken into account as well. And states, it also varies state by state, what the rules are when it comes to that also.
It can be everything you've ever earned and owned. Like if you own a house and then you get married and then a couple years later you get divorced, yeah, you're out. That's the funniest thing. The trope about divorce is the husband always gets booted from the house. And then I watched Breaking Bad and I was like, oh, there you go. Because in Breaking Bad, she's like, get out. And you're like, no, it's my house. And the cops were like, it's his house. Have a nice day. And she was like, oh no. But it's crazy that these are the tropes that, you watch The Simpsons and the Van Houtens or whatever get divorced and the Mouse's dad just leaves. And he goes and lives in like a bachelor pad. And I'm like, why? It's his house. Yeah. All of these things, like, it's just, you grow up watching that stuff and you're like, what's the point of marriage? I got to tell you, man, feminism seems to have been one of the worst possible things for women. Not in the terms of like, they got their independence, they get their jobs. And this one's for you, young Turks and feminist websites. You can take this one because I know you're going to want to spin this one out of context. But the issue is now guys can bang whoever they want, whenever they want, with no strings attached. That's not a benefit to women.
No.
When regardless of what your mentality is, let's just break it down to simple probabilities and numbers. Women, when they get pregnant, they either have to have an abortion to get rid of it, or they have to have a child. Whereas if a guy goes to a party and there's a bunch of, people doing crazy stuff and he hooks up with a random chick because we're in this hookup culture and she doesn't know who he is and she gets pregnant, dude has nothing to worry about. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. The problem is for the woman. The benefit is for the men. Guys can go and party and hook up and never have to think twice about it, but women do. So I don't know how this hookup culture benefited women, I guess, but
There was an article in the New York Post today that was titled, "I'm dating so many men, I need an Excel spreadsheet to organize my love life." And reading that story kind of was a little depressing, understanding our current landscape. But this is where we're at, and I think we have to, talk about these things from an open-minded way. Different people have their different experiences. They need to go through them in order to see that they were wrong. But I think also as a society, we should be considering the long-term kind of consequences for them and having those kind of conversations and debates.
Whoa, this is big. Someone just super chatted this right now. Ian was right about folks. Jezebel misquoted Seamus as Ian. The timestamp is 1:03:03. Really? Can we 1:03? Oh, we only have the clip. I don't have the full episode, so I don't know where that would actually be in the episode. But it was Seamus who said it, and they claimed it was Ian who said it. That is interesting.
Is that illegal for them to do that?
It's not illegal. It's a civil tort, meaning the clips are actually broken down. Arranged marriage.
I miss that guy, by the way. I love you,
Seamus, where you at? It means so that's a false statement of fact. That's actually serious on Jezebel's part, and it's been up for months. We've now discovered that. The question now is damages.
Okay, damages is girl that you wrote it. Come on the show, Kylie Chung.
That's not.
come talk to me about this.
That's not how it works.
I want to get her on the spot.
Have you lost money or have you been damaged by them attributing Seamus to you? I mean, people are making fun of you. You need corrective marketing. And that's
I understand the process.
No, but
honestly, I'd rather just communicate with Kylie about it.
All right. Well,
in public.
Corrective marketing we may have to do for the show. And I mean this. So when it comes to defamation, damages in the form of corrective marketing means if one of the aspects of this show is we have Ian here for a reason. Ian is not your typical conservative commentator, quite the opposite. And we don't actually know what your background is. You're kind of a weird dude. And that works. Some people don't like you. Some people really like you. Some people say you roll one. Some people say you roll 20s. Well, that's kind of the point. We don't want to make a cookie cutter show. So having opinions that we can't predict or having weird arguments sometimes makes it more interesting than your average run of the mill show. If they're now lying to people and saying that Ian is a conservative commentator, it is actually hurting the point of having you on the show. That means we have to do corrective marketing. I got to buy a Times Square billboard of you. That's really expensive.
It's going to cost Jezebel.
And Jezebel's going to have to pay for that. Because they're claiming you're a conservative when the point, I mean, Luke's not a conservative. Luke's an anarchist libertarian type. I'm weird, middle of the road. Ian is weird all over the place. And then we have, frequently we get libertarian and conservative guests. But if they're going to make false statements of fact about one of our co-hosts, Seamus was a temporary co-host. He's a co-host on the show for quite a bit, but he's not a staff member here. He's just a recurring guest and friend of ours. He's not a part of it. He's not like a core staffer at the company. So I'm sorry, like this might end up being very, very expensive. We got to look at how many views they got, how many shares it got. Then we got to do corrective marketing, and they're gonna have to pay for it.
Who super chatted that, by the way? Because thank you so much for that.
That was Tangent.
Tangent. Thanks.
Who pointed this out?
Really a lot. That's
I don't know
awesome.
if I'm gonna try and play this because maybe it's here.
This is gonna give me like.
No, I don't know if this is. It's the timestamp he gave is in the full episode. We don't have that. We only have the clip. So
It's gonna be hard to find.
yeah.
This
So
is the
it'll be too
episode
hard
with
to find.
Chloe Carmichael. The Ping Trip famously took out of
that
context
is
on
great.
purpose to make a killer
That is great.
satire video.
Oh, it might be this. Let me play.
Well,
it.
you know, it's funny because we live in this culture where no fault divorce is the law of the land.
There it
And
is.
people will say things like, well, look how often marriage ends in divorce. How could you ever be in favor of social structures which disincentivize that or would, dissuade people from getting divorced? But I think what people often miss is if young folks know they're in an environment where divorce is not an option, I firmly believe they're going to be more careful about who they choose to marry. And I think also people are going to be more careful about their decision making in general when it comes to sexuality. A lot of people will start sleeping with someone, and as you've mentioned, that releases oxytocin and other hormones that bond you. And there are a lot of couples that end up together because they're sexually engaging with one another and they're bonding, but they're not actually really good for each other. And then at some point in the marriage, when the novelty of that person wears off, they get divorced. So I think,
Well, there it is. It was Seamus. Jezebel posted fake news, a false statement of fact about who said what. See, here's the thing. Seamus is a Catholic conservative.
He is.
So he has those opinions. Not Ian Crossland.
No, definitely.
Oh man, that's bad for the reputation of the show. I'm gonna have to, we're gonna have to employ some corrective marketing here.
So you go after obviously the company. Well, I'm wondering, Kylie Chung, the author, or the company Jezebel? Like, who's on the hook for that?
Both of them.
Yeah, both.
They're both. Yeah. So Jezebel's supposed to have a standard here where, I mean, this is a brazen false statement of fact. They're not going to be able to hide behind opinion on this one. They outright said Ian Crossland's ads, quote. And not only that, the quote from Seamus was very long. He made a lot of interesting points. And it's interesting that they cut out a core element of what he said, which is the release of oxytocin, that people are engaging in hookup culture. They cut all that out, attribute it to Ian Crossland, who's not a conservative commentator. And now they've got a very, very direct false statement of fact. That's not an opinion statement, right? They said Ian Crossland did this thing. You did not do it. That's false. Oh, well. I'm going to have to call my lawyers after this. I didn't even catch that. Thank you to Tangent for pointing out it was Seamus who said that.
$965 million right now. We want it on the table.
Precedent is set.
Or else.
I'm paying his legal fees.
Yeah. 965 million.
The reality is
That's
you
not too
should-
much. That's not too much with
You
what's
should
going on.
do something about it because you are in a position to do something. A lot of the little guys out there that have these kinds of things happen to them in these media organizations all the time, they don't really have the ability to fight back.
It felt very like I was being molested when I read that comment that I didn't make attributed to me. I was like, this is like a really creepy feeling. But I had the confidence knowing I was coming on the show tonight to talk about it. If I didn't have a show like this, that would have been devastating. Because I even started to question, did I say it?
Yeah.
What's wrong with
You
me?
have no way to fight back.
So here's what'll likely happen. Corrective marketing is damages, and in all seriousness, I'm going to have to talk with our marketing people and a lawyer about it to see how we deal with this because it's out there. It's out there. People are talking about it.
Yeah.
I tweeted about it, calling it absurd and laughable, and so we'll take a look at it. But the reality of what likely will happen is they will issue a correction, and that ends it.
Yeah.
If we have to do corrective marketing, we can then escalate and say, no, you got to pay damages because we got to pay for marketing because of what you said.
Well, if they're going to correct it, at least say that I'm a wild hippie.
Right.
If you're gonna categorize me as something, geez.
It depends
Mention
on-
DMT in the correction. Too.
It depends on how many hits it got. We'll have to. The corrective marketing will involve research into the reach that this did. So there's probably a bunch of YouTubers who talked about it and then started repeating the lie that Ian Crossland said these things he never said. So, hey man, it's one thing if they said, in our opinion, Ian Crossland, is a fascist or a conservative. You can't sue over that. It's a protected opinion. But this is an outright false statement of fact. That's like very, very obvious. So it's reckless disregard for the truth in that capacity. That was Seamus. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.